Hello everybody, it's Monday evening and I wanted to come on. There's a few videos I want to do. One concerning Chantal's last video where she addresses the reaction channels and, you know, coming out with her usual hypocritical nonsense. The other video I want to do is regarding Peetz, who went into an absolute rage again. Was it yesterday, in a recent video anyway, and he's going to give himself a heart attack, seriously, the way he's going. If all this is genuine and he really is feeling this aggravated and really, you know, can't take criticism or the trolls and all the rest of it, then maybe he should consider just getting off YouTube for a while, collecting himself, and maybe engaging in some therapy with somebody who can understand what is going on with him. I don't know whether he's been diagnosed with a form of people are throwing words about like autism and, you know, manic depression and stuff like that, bipolar. But we're not psychiatrists and we don't have access to the person. So it's dangerous to try and diagnose him or to make these assumptions. He really does need to speak to somebody, and somebody away from the Chantal verse, somebody away from her. She's done a lot of damage. I see that, Foodie Beauty. I see that people are saying, well, she can't be responsible for him and it's not right, he needs to get up off his backside. Yes, I agree. He's 40 years old and he should be responsible for himself. But take into consideration that when Chantal left BB, she was the one begging Peetz to move in with her, not to move in with her only, to get an apartment together, because she couldn't get credit. She couldn't sign for anything. And so they got an apartment which Peetz signed the lease for. He was working at that time. She also asked him to give up his job so that he could be there for her 24/7 as her backup, her sounding board, just somebody, a crutch on which to lean. And so he got the apartment, he paid off her debts more than one occasion. He gave up his job on her say-so, and since he's been living with her, he's gradually diminished and diminished and diminished to the husk of a person he is. And I don't mean to shame Peetz by saying that. I'm just saying it as a fact. This is what Foodie Beauty has done. And now she's made a video saying that she's told Peetz he's got to leave. He's got to leave the villa. He's got to move out. Hold your horses a minute. The villa's in his name. So if anybody's going to move out and going to have to find another place to live, it's going to be you, Chantal, not Peetz. You. Peetz, my advice to... Well, I've got a lot of advice for you, but I want this video to be about something else. But one of the things I will say to you is, get a roommate. Somebody to help with the bills. Somebody who you get on with. So who's going to be a positive force in your life. And I said it jokingly, but I was only half joking, when I suggested Aunt Phyllis, Chantal's Aunt Phyllis. She likes you, Peetz. She thinks you're a genius, which we all know you're not. but she likes you, she admires you, and I think that she would be a positive influence. So why not consider Aunt Phyllis moving in with you as a roommate? Temporarily, anyway. Temporarily. Everything in life, really, is temporary. We're only here temporarily. So why not look at it that way? Get somebody to move in with you on a temporary basis until you are feeling more able to cope, and have them on a lease. Say, you know, they can stay there for 12 months with no threat of being kicked out. I mean, Chantal wants to kick you out, ideally, before she comes back, because as a married woman, you know, she doesn't want you being there. Salah doesn't want you being there. You can't be there. Under Islamic law, you can't be living with an Islamic woman, married or not. So it's your place. Dig your heels in, stay where you are, and think about getting a roommate. Which brings me on to something I want to mention before I go on to the other videos, which I'll do probably tomorrow now, because I've been out most of the day today. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and I'm going to read a little bit about Islamic marriage. Am I shading my face there? About Islamic marriage. So it says, Islamic weddings are as varied as the people who celebrate them, and practices are quite different around the world. However, Islam does have some important teachings about marriage. Unlike Christians, Muslims do not see marriage as a sacrament. Therefore, you know, till death us do part, and in the sight of God, that doesn't apply. They do not see marriage as a sacrament as we do. And they tend to weigh practical marriage, practical concerns over love in selecting matches. Well, that would explain why Salah was quite happy to commit to Chantal in a way. He's eyeballed her on YouTube. A lot of what he saw he didn't like, of course. That's why her videos, etc. had to go. But what he did like about her was, he said, her adaptability, her willingness to change and her adaptability. And that is very important in Islamic marriages. So he saw that in her. He saw that she had no real beliefs of her own, and that he could mould her. I believe that's what he saw. But more importantly than that, he saw that she was making a lot of money. He heard her boast about this $20,000 a month, that she was making. He heard her boast about living in a luxury villa. He heard her boast about perhaps moving to a mansion. It all boded well for him there. In addition, of course, to him moving across to Canada and getting his Canadian citizenship. So practical concerns there really did weigh with him. So what weighed with Chantal? Well, we all know, don't we? It begins with a D, it ends with a K, and it's a 4-letter word. So the 4 types of marriage in Islam. Right. One is the muta, if that's how you pronounce it, M-U-T-A-H. Here, a man and woman can marry for a predetermined length of time. It can be anything from a few hours to many years. Whilst most Muslims forbid this type of ceremony, many Shia Muslims continue to allow it. I'm not sure whether Salah is a Shia Muslim or a Sunni Muslim. I don't know. So the next marriage, number 2, is Mesyar. M-E-S-Y-A-R. Mesyar, or traveller marriage, can be found in Arab countries, pardon me, with many, I want to hiccup then, with many foreign workers. Often men leave their families behind when travelling to other countries to work, and it may be years before they return home. Rather than live as single men whilst they are away, many then enter into Mesyar marriages. They are unofficial unions with local women. Well, I guess it can be any women, really. Generally, but most women wouldn't travel across from Canada. Generally, the men do so without telling their families back home. Wouldn't surprise me. Although Islamic law does not officially forbid this type of marriage, most Muslim scholars warn against it, but it's not forbidden and it happens. The next marriage, the third one, and there's 4. The third one is marriage with the Quran. This one doesn't really apply. It applies to a girl whose family marry her to the Quran, and it's very typical to women becoming nuns and forgoing a relationship with a man, forgoing marriage, as we see, forgoing a family or sexual relationships, and being married really to Allah or God, similar to a woman becoming a nun. So we'll gloss over that one. So the 4th marriage is Urfi, U-R-F-I. Urfi, or secret marriage, is becoming increasingly popular in Egypt. Economic problems are forcing young adults to wait years before they can marry officially. So they go about it and have an Urfi marriage. These are unofficial and do not require the same financial commitments from the husband. This type of marriage, eyebrow lift, can be formed very simply with just 2 witnesses. The marriage are controversial, and many Muslim leaders encourage women in particular to avoid them, I guess, because the woman can't be, have any commitment, financial commitment from the man. But that's not going to affect Chantal. As I said, she's there for D, something K. And he's there for citizenship. That's my belief. So Muslim leaders encourage women to avoid them because of the financial devastation they could face if their earthly husbands leave them. So I guess if a woman marries, if they go about it and have an earthly marriage and they have children, the husband can actually leave or choose to leave, and he's going to leave them with the kids, maybe, with no financial commitment from him. But that, I believe, an earthly or secret marriage may be one that Foodie Beauty and Salah have entered into. Increasingly popular and common in Egypt, unofficial, no financial commitment from the husband, only 2 witnesses. That sounds about right, doesn't it? I don't know how that would look if he was going to be wanting citizenship in Canada, but if they can say they went about this marriage for so and so and so and so reasons, but they love each other, they want to be together, and she's in a position where she can financially sponsor him, where she's willing to look after him for 2 years financially, then maybe that's something that they've gone ahead and done. That, or the Messiah marriage, where can be found in Arab countries with many foreign workers. They don't tell their men, their families, sorry, the men don't tell their families. It isn't forbidden in Islam. It's not encouraged, but it isn't forbidden. Again, for the woman's sake. And usually it's an unofficial union with local women, but nothing is said about, you know, somebody travelling from another country and entering into that type of marriage with an Islamic man from a Muslim man from another country. The other thing is, what I was thinking was, how easy it's been for him to go ahead with marriage as my stomach grumbled. I haven't had my dinner yet. How easy it would be for him to go about marriage as a Muslim man in Kuwait, a Syrian Muslim worker. And he's saying now that he's always said that he's between jobs. What does that mean? Was his job for a fixed period of like 2 years and that's come to an end? So, if so, does he have another job to go to? I mean, he's not worked for the last 2 weeks while Chantal has been there. So, is it possible that they've been involved in one of these marriages, the URFI, look it up, URFI, or the Muta, or even the Messiah, any of those marriages? Is it possible that they've engaged in that sort of a union, and as his job has come to an end, he's been allowed, he's been allowed to stay for another, you know, couple of weeks, because he's got leave still to use up, and when Chantal goes back to Canada, he's going to be in Syria. So, you know, maybe he's got leave to use up. And then, as I say, when he goes back to Syria, that's it. But they're married. They are married under Islamic law in one of these marriages. How the authorities in Canada are going to view it, I don't know. I don't think they can turn around and say you're not married, because that would be racist, wouldn't it? Or what do you call it when it's irreligious, to mock, you know, other people's beliefs and say, well, no, you're not married. What would it be, actually, if I'm Salah already had a wife? Because we don't know, do we? Say he had a wife and Chantal was his second wife. You know, there's nothing that she can do about it. And if she's not his second wife, if further down the line Salah decided to take a second wife, Chantal's got no say in the matter. She can agree or not. She's got no say in the matter. It's the husband's right under Islamic law. Obviously, I guess the imams would prefer Salah to tell his wife. I think it's preferred that the wife is told as a courtesy, really. You know, you've had this relationship with a woman for so many years, maybe got kids with her, and she's told as a courtesy, but she's got no right to object to it. Or she can object, but there's nothing she can do about it. But I believe that they've probably gone ahead and they've got involved in a marriage ceremony, one of these that I've mentioned, and they've been able to do it quite quickly. And maybe Salah is there for a temporary period now, using up his leave, and when he goes back to Syria, Chantal will go back to Canada, and the process to start the paperwork to get him over there, over to Canada, will be embarked upon. But as I said at the beginning of this video, Peetz, don't allow yourself to be walked over. Don't be a doormat like you've been all this time. Dig your heels in. That's your apartment. It's yours. You are on that lease, not her. Stay where you are. Ask Aunt Phyllis to move in. Think of the views you'd get. Think of the clicks, eh? I'll be back with another video, darlings, either tonight or tomorrow. Good night.